Wow. What a day. What a finish. What a game. And we're all trying to catch our breath, and Eagles fans everywhere nearly had a heart attack watching the end of that Eagles-Rams game in the NFC divisional round. But the Eagles, for the second consecutive week, they survived and they have advanced. And now the Eagles, with this 28-22 win over the Rams, advancing to the NFC Championship game for the second time in 3 years, for their 8th time since the turn of the century in 2000. And the NFC East, it is back. This Eagles-Commanders rivalry, it is renewed. And for the 3rd time this year, we will see the Eagles play Washington, this time for the right to play in Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans in a couple of weeks. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. My name is Chase Sr. No matter where you are or how you're tuned in, we're all trying to catch our breath together. We're all dealing with the stress that we dealt with that game. But as an Eagles fan, you always know what the deal is. It is never easy. By the way, during our watch party, we picked up so many new subscribers. The channel surpassed 100,000 subs. Thank you so much for all of your support. What we do wouldn't be possible without all of you. And for our Eagles-Rams watch party, as I'm recording this right now, approaching 300,000 views. Where to begin with this game? As I noted, final score, Eagles win 28-22. They're off to the NFC Championship game. They will host the Washington Commanders in a 2-6 matchup. The Commanders able to upset the Detroit Lions on the road as they won the turnover battle 5-0 against the number 1 seed in the NFC. And I have been saying for weeks, the Eagles have the deepest team in the NFL, the most well-rounded team in the NFL. They're one of the most well-coached teams in the NFL. The path is in front of them. They have to take advantage because the path is there for them to make it to the Super Bowl. And it was a difficult game against Green Bay. Eagles played a C-level game overall, D-level game on the offensive side of the football. They still won by 12. In this game against Los Angeles, it got hairy late. They pulled away late. Rams able to make it interesting with that touchdown late as Matthew Stafford hit his tight end and Parkinson to make it a 6-point game. Jake Elliott missed a couple of PATs. That's why this game came down to the wire. And then the Eagles, weird, mysterious play calling on their last offensive drive. A 2nd down, a naked boot for Jalen Hurts, who was dealing with a knee injury. And that allowed the Rams to have an opportunity to come back and win this game. And this Eagles defense, led by Vic Fangio, was awesome in this ballgame. Won the turnover battle 2-0. The Rams scored an opening drive touchdown to respond to what the Eagles did with their opening drive touchdown, a 42-yard touchdown run for Jalen Hurts. But then they didn't score a touchdown again until they went 70 yards in less than 2 minutes to make this a 6-point game. And then Matthew Stafford hits Puka Nacua on a long ball, 50-50 ball, contested catch between Nacua and Darius Slay, and that got the Rams right around or in the red zone. And then the Eagles, led by Jalen Carter, who put this defense on his back, was able to get to Matthew Stafford on 2 huge plays to close this game out, and the Cardiac Eagles escape with the victory. It wasn't pretty once again. It was not easy once again. It came down to the wire once again. It was very stressful once again. But let me do a glass half full type of approach here. As we look ahead to this Eagles-Commanders game, the Eagles played a C-level game against the Packers. They won and covered. They played a pretty average game against the Rams. They still win to make it to the NFC Championship game. At some point, the Eagles are going to get everything together, right? In all 3 phases, and they're going to play a clean game from start to finish where the weather, like today, doesn't impact them on the offensive side of the football, and hopefully that clean performance comes against the Washington Commanders. Because it's due, and the Eagles are due, to play a clean and dominant game, and hopefully that comes up against a Washington team that has exceeded all expectations, that has performed so much better than anybody had anticipated, and a Washington team that's in the NFC title game, but they've already done what they set out to do and more, and in a rebuilding year, they're playing in the Final Four. But is a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels really going to lead the Commanders into Philadelphia in the NFC title game? to lift Washington to a Super Bowl, that would be an insane story. And even though the Commanders beat the Eagles a few weeks ago, and that really jump-started this late season surge for Washington, I still compare the Eagles to the Commanders, and I say, Eagles are the better team. Eagles are at home, and they're going up against a rookie quarterback in this game. And will the Commanders celebrate that Lions win like it's their Super Bowl? And will that cost them in the NFC title game? Whereas the Eagles, they've been here. They've done that. They have a lot of playoff history since the turn of 2000, and now it's time to punch their ticket to Super Bowl 59. As for this game, let's just run through a couple of marquee storylines and what transpired during it. We will continue to monitor the status of quarterback Jalen Hurts. Jared Verse and this Rams defensive line really had the number of this Eagles offensive line, especially the interior of this Eagles offensive line, and Jared Verse won his battle going up against Jordan Mailata. Verse had said a few days ago, I hate Eagles fans. He backed that talk up, and he played a hell of a football game. He had 2 sacks, both of which were in the first half, 3 TFLs, 2 of which were in the first half, and he had 2 quarterback hits. And so the Eagles offensive line did not come to play in this game. But as far as their ground attack goes, the Eagles offensive line was a big reason why the Eagles won this ball game. And a big reason why the Eagles, just like they did back in Week 12, ran all over the Rams. As a team, they ran for 314 yards back in Week 12. Saquon Barkley had 255 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns of 70-plus yards. Well, in this game, he was every bit of the MVP player that he's been for this team all year long. Eagles do not win this game without him. They're not where they are without him. What a legendary performance. 26 carries, 205 yards, 7.9 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, a long of 78. And what a scene it was when he took that ball in to the crib from 78 yards out. Shades of Shady McCoy back in 2013 against the Lions. The snow is coming down. Eagles able to break that game open, but then they kind of mismanaged the end of the game, and that allowed the Rams to come back in it. A lot of people are going to take issue with quarterback Jalen Hurts. Hurts was 15 of 20, 128 yards, 6.4 yards per carry, or 6.4 yards per completion. What was huge about Jalen, 7 carries, 70 yards, and he had a 44-yard rushing touchdown on the opening drive of the game. So it was good to see that mobility there. It was good once again to see him play a clean brand of football. But once again, the Eagles passing game, they have to get better against Washington. Guys weren't open downfield. Jalen Hurts was holding onto the ball a little bit too long. And the Eagles offensive line, they gave up 7 sacks of Hurts. Some of those on Hurts. And some of those bad decisions to not get rid of it. He took a safety, and he took 2 sacks, which knocked the Eagles out of field goal range. Those things have to get cleaned up. But can the Eagles clean those things up to play a flawless game against Washington, because that's what's needed? So some initial takeaways from this game is we're all just experiencing this win with our brains overloaded with craziness from that ball game with how it ended, because it shouldn't have been that close. Jake Elliott, 2 missed PATs. Jalen Hurts taking that safety. 2 sacks, knocking you out of field goal range. The Saquon Barkley touchdown run looked to have blown this game open at the time, and then the Rams scored that touchdown to make it close. And then they nearly score another touchdown. They would have had to have converted on the extra point, and if they would have been one of the most dysfunctional, awful losses in the history of all of football, not just this organization. All right, let's get to our sponsor here, our friends at Game Time. Eagles Commanders, 3 p.m. Eastern next Sunday. Same time, same place. You want to go to that game? Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks to Game Time Picks, Curation makes it easier to find the best seats at the lowest price guaranteed. Instead of having to sort through thousands of tickets, it's not just an app for sporting events. It's an app for concerts, comedy shows, theater events, and a whole lot more. They have flash deals and zone deals. The Game Time guarantee is awesome. If you find tickets for a lower price elsewhere, Game Time will credit you up to 110% of the difference. Eagles Commanders going to be electric as this NFC East rivalry really becoming renewed here during the 2024 season and as we flip the calendar to 2025. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We appreciate our partners for making today's Eagles Now postgame show possible. I also want to talk about Nick Serriani here, right? Nick Serriani is now 52-23 during his time as the Eagles head coach. He has the number one winning percentage among active head coaches. He is the third highest winning percentage in the Super Bowl era. And in 2 of the last 3 playoff runs for this Eagles team, he has taken down Kyle Shanahan head-to-head, Matt LaFleur head-to-head, and Sean McVay head-to-head. And today, Sean McVay had the better quarterback as compared to Nick Sirianni. If you were to poll fans and media members nationally, who's a better head coach, Nick Sirianni or Shanahan, McVay, LaFleur? Almost all of them would not take Nick Sirianni. But Nick Sirianni is so Philadelphia. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. He has some flaws. Sometimes he can get a little bit emotional. But he is a damn good football coach who, with this win here today, the Eagles should sign him to a contract extension before he takes the podium for his postgame press conference. He's won 14 games 2 of the last 3 years, and in 2 of the last 3 years, he has made it to an NFC Championship game. It's not just about talent. Why do coaches get fired all the time across the NFL and professional sports? They have talent. They don't maximize that talent. Nick Sirianni does that. Nick Sirianni has built a championship culture. He has built a mental fortitude, thick-skinned type of culture. He has developed players. He has catered his team to their strengths. He has hired and he has surrounded himself with some really good coordinators. And it is just time to give Nick Sirianni his credit. People won't do that because they don't like him. But what you can't deny now is that he is a damn good football coach. And he's part of the reason why Vic Fangio came to the Eagles. Vic Fangio didn't work out with the Miami Dolphins. His old school Scranton, Dunmore, Pennsylvania, iron, coal, steel town type of mentality, it didn't work well when it's 80 degrees all the time. Glitz and glamour of Miami. Dolphins players hated him. He maximized the defense with so many injuries. But Mike McDaniel lets him go. He comes to the Eagles. They make him the highest paid defensive coordinator in the sport, according to a lot of chatter. And what he has done with this Eagles team has been so eye-opening and head-turning. It's actually incredible. And I took a picture of this pregame. The Eagles' defense last year. Let's see here. The Eagles' defense last year, 26th in yards per game, 31st in yards per game, or passing yards per game, 30th in points per game. This year, the Eagles, first in total yards per game, first in passing yards per game, second in points per game. The Rams had some success on 3rd down and 4th down, but you're going up against Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. You're going up against Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. You're going up against a Rams team that has improved their running game, have improved their offensive line. And Vic Fangio gave up a touchdown in the first quarter and in the fourth quarter, and once again, they continue to manufacture so many turnovers where they win the turnover battle 2-0. And when you win the turnover battle in the NFL, you win about 80% of the time. So the Eagles in this game, they get outgained by the Rams. That happened late because the Rams are trying to pick up so many yards, going no huddle, fast pace down in this game. Rams pick up more first downs, 18 to the Eagles 16. 6 of 16 on 3rd downs. The Eagles 6 of 15. Both teams with 3 penalties, pretty clean game. Time of possession, Eagles won that 30-54 to 29-06. And part of that is because of the ground game and this Eagles rushing attack. But the Eagles don't win against the Packers if it weren't for Vic Fangio's defense. The Eagles don't win against the Rams if it weren't for that defense. Nakobe Dean goes out. Oren Burks comes through and plays a really good game. That pass breakup he had along the line of scrimmage against Stafford, huge play. Quinyon Mitchell goes out with a shoulder injury. Isaiah Rodgers comes in. He lost a couple of 50-50 battles, but he also played really well. It's also the development that we've seen from these young players. Nolan Smith had a huge strip sack of Matthew Stafford, 1 sack as a rookie, 6 sacks year 2, 2 sacks against Green Bay, a strip sack in this game. Jalen Carter is one of the best defensive players in all of football. Zach Bond, once again, making plays all over the yard. Quinyon Mitchell, when he was in the game early, was making plays. Cooper DeJean making plays. Like, good coaches maximize players. They put them in a position to succeed. That's what Serriani's done. That's what Kellen Moore has done. That's what Vic Fangio has done. And that's a big reason why the Eagles are marching on and why they're able to win these games playing ugly. And the Eagles don't play sexy like the Detroit Lions. They don't play sexy like some other teams. But you know what? 2 teams are still standing that win ugly, win close, and they have this toughness about them. They're very rugged and physical. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. And that is how you win in the month of January, in the month of February, in the month of December. When you have to deal with inclement weather, when you're playing in the playoffs, when the pressure is on, can you rise above all of that, face adversity, and respond to it? The Eagles under Nick Sirianni have been able to do that. And other teams would die to have the success that the Eagles have had. And I know that Kellen Moore's play calling at moments in this game was a little bit weird, calling pass plays when he shouldn't have, with Jalen Hurts dealing with a knee injury. But Nick Sirianni also managed this game pretty well. And look at who mismanaged the game last night on Saturday between the Lions and the Commanders. Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell doesn't call plays like Nick Sirianni. It's his job to manage the game. He failed in doing that. Nick Sirianni has succeeded more times than not in doing that. It's not just about calling plays at the head coaching spot. And Bill Belichick didn't call plays. Mike Tomlin, Jim Harbaugh, John Harbaugh, Dan Campbell, Dan Quinn. Some of the best coaches don't call plays. You don't have to call plays to be a great coach. As for this Eagles-Commanders game, this Commanders team is so legit. And this Commanders team, they've been a really good story this year. The number 1 surprise story among all teams in the National Football League. I had said prior to this year, I think the Commanders can make things interesting in the NFC East. I'm still picking the Eagles to win the division, but they can at least make things interesting. They made things interesting. I had said I think the Commanders can be a pesky, dangerous team. They have this year. Did I expect them to make it to the Final Four NFC Championship game? No. I didn't. But they're here because Jaden Daniels is for real. Cliff Kingsbury has been in his bag calling plays. They're balanced enough with running it that they're able to find success on the ground. But Jaden Daniels has been phenomenal, sensational. He looks to be a top 10 quarterback already, and he's unfazed, cool, calm, and collected, a flatliner as a rookie. And this Commanders team, offensively, they are number 4 in points per game, number 5 in yards per game, 5th in yards per play, 10th in yards per, 5th in points per play, 10th in yards per play, 6th on third downs, number 1 on fourth downs, 81.25%. They're number 6 in the red zone, number 6 in touchdowns per game. Offensively, they are not a fluke. Terry McLaurin's a really good wide receiver. Diami Brown's been good. You have Alameda Zaccheaus, Zach Ertz playing awesome. They have 3 running backs. Daniels can run it. He can throw it. They are legit. But when will their great story run out? Will it run out against Philadelphia on the road in the NFC Championship game? Defensively, the Commanders, 18th in points per game, 16th in yards per game, 22nd in points per play, 24th in yards per play, 15th on third downs, 29th on fourth downs, 21st in the red zone, 20th in touchdowns per game. If this Eagles defense comes to play and they play like they did against Green Bay, against the Rams, and they win the turnover battle, they will beat Washington. If they have disciplined pass rush lanes and they're aware that Jane Daniels is a threat to run it at any moment, if they guard the RPO, if they guard some of the zone read plays, they can win this game. The Eagles earlier this year at home kind of handled Washington as they popped off for 20-plus points in that fourth quarter. after they struggled in the first 3. The Commanders' defense will try to muddy this game up. But offensively, I know Jane Daniels is coming off that rib injury. He struggled a little bit in that game. Then, when the Eagles were on the road against Washington, they were up 14-0. They forced 5 turnovers in that game. They were up 14 points multiple times. They still lost. Jane Daniels was incredible after Jalen Hurts went out. But if Jalen Hurts continued to stay in that game, and if he finished it out, I think the Eagles win, and they win pretty convincingly. And so that tells me that the Eagles are the better team as compared to Washington. So those are some initial thoughts. But how good Washington is on the money downs, 3rd down, 4th down, in the red zone, you're going to have to get off the field. You're going to have to get critical stops. When they do get in the red area, you're going to have to force field goals and not let them find the end zone. And given the Nick Seriani, Zach Ertz beef, you know that's going to be a thing in the lead up to this game. But if the Eagles offense finally has that performance that they're capable of having, and they're well-rounded and multiple, and their defense comes to play, Eagles should be marching on to Super Bowl 59. We will do a full preview for that game tomorrow on the channel. Be on the lookout for that. Fantastic coverage to come all throughout the week. So who you got? NFC Championship game, Washington, Philadelphia, a great NFC East rivalry renewed.